Welcome to the David Spisak Show. I'm so thankful to have you here. I'm delighted that you took the time to join. And as always, we're going to endeavor to be able to make the most of this time that you've been kind enough to share with us. You're going to, I think, really be glad that you did, because I'm fortunate enough to have Angelo Mendola with us today. And Angelo is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Priority Payment Systems Local. And boy, Angelo, first and foremost, that just rolls right off your tongue. Thank you for thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, it's always the pleasure hanging out with you, David. You know that we've had some really good conversations over the last year or two, and I'm happy to be here as well. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you. I don't you find, and there's a lot I want to cover in a short amount of time, but I'll digress just for a second. You have to love the way life works, right? We as human beings, so oftentimes I feel like we want our hands on the wheel of the car, right? Taking control of life. And in many, many places in your life, it's appropriate. It's the right thing to do. You don't want life to happen to you. We want to happen to life. But once in a while, if you have your hands off the wheel and you stick it on cruise control, some pretty cool things happen. I met you in that way, didn't I?
That's right.
There was no intention. Usually I love intentionality, but this was not by intention that I met you or vice versa. True?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's crazy just how life works. So I'm very thankful for that, and it's nice to finally have the opportunity to have a conversation with you. There's so much that I want to talk to you about on behalf of dealers in terms of what you're bringing to the industry and how you're specifically transforming the industry with your solution. You've really you talk about stepping outside the box. You guys have just completely blown up the box, and I want to get to that. But before I do, please, if you would be so kind, indulge my curiosity. I always say I have the curiosity of a 5-year-old or 4-year-old, and it's really true. And I think people listening in always enjoy hearing this as well. So would you mind, before we go anything into any other area of the conversation, would you just do me a favor and take us back into the time machine, if you will, and let me know what exactly happened. What were the steps that you took that brought you to where you are right now?
I mean, the time machine is going to be a little bit dusty, but I'll shake it off and get us there. So in 2003, I started my career, right out of college, and I wanted to be a builder of relationships, not just businesses. Of course, I wanted to make money, just like everyone does. But my career has always been about connecting people to value in practical, measurable ways.
Where did that come
from? So that comes from, I started in the residential lending world. And then in 2008,
I want to know this passion, this intention, this drive you have to be a connector of people and to inherently understand at that age, coming out of college. I mean, that's something I think there's people in their 50s and 60s that hasn't connected those dots. But to figure out, as you come out of college, the power of relationships and how that plays such a pivotal role in transforming businesses, where did that come from? Where did you learn that?
I think it all started with my family. We were a big Italian family. We spent so much time together, and we still do, right? Every holiday, every morning, breakfast, coffee, espresso with a pastry or eggs from my grandmother or my mother, bringing home some of the best ingredients to make the best food. And then, when it was time to kind of grow up at the age of 14, my family decided to allow me to work in the restaurant business, and starting off as a busboy and a porter, and then graduating into being a server, a waiter, we called it back then, bartending here and there. In these local restaurants, you make friends with these people who patronize these eateries, and we were a pretty high-end Italian restaurant, and those people depended on us, and getting on a first-name basis with them was so important. And it got to the point where when I was a server or even a busboy at that point, I wouldn't allow people to look at the menu. I would ask them, what do you want to eat? What are you in the mood for? You had a dish in mind when you were driving here or walking over to the restaurant. What was it that you were thinking about? Was it a piece of fish? Was it a steak? Was it a pasta? Was it some appetizer? Was it something fried, something grilled? What was it? And that conversation would always last 10 minutes because then we talk about, the way food was made at home or the last time they had that dish and the events that happened around that dish. And it made me think like, yeah, I'm here to work and make money, but I'm also here to serve and make someone happy. So in exchange for this relationship and experience, we're both going to get what we want out of this. And I took that to the next level, in business. And I always wanted to make sure that I remembered those days because that's really where I made my bones. And it wasn't always about the money. I mean, of course it mattered, but it wasn't the most important thing.
The money's kind of the byproduct, isn't it, Angelo, of doing something right?
It happens anyway.
Yeah. So, all right. So you got a bit of a primer, an education where you were able to learn very early the power of relationships, of connecting with people. And so you come out of college with this real, true intention of doing exactly that. And exactly what happened? What was the first business you ended up in, the first industry?
So actually working in the restaurant business, I met someone in the residential lending world who was a very good client. Customers to come in all the time, bring their family, their friends. And he said, "You're in the wrong business." And I said, "How?" He said, you know how to put pieces together and create these experiences. And, somehow he married that to, refinancing and helping people get mortgages for purchases. And I didn't know what he meant at first. So I actually took a ride down to downtown Manhattan to watch them work. That he asked me to do this. I said, "Hey, come watch me in action." And I did that. I got a chance to shadow this guy for an hour and then we had lunch. And during that hour I was there, I watched him or I listened to him really speak to someone who was in the market to buy a home. And they needed, back then you needed a pre-qualification letter, you still do today. But what he did was he wasn't selling them a mortgage. He wasn't selling them the bank. He was selling them the dream of home ownership. This was a first-time home buyer.
Smart.
And me as I didn't own a home at the time. And I'm listening and I was kind of, now I want to buy a home. He made it sound so easy and part of the dream fulfillment. I said, "Hey, I think I could do this." And then he showed me, one of his pay stubs, kind of like out of Wolf of Wall Street. And I said, "Wow, you get paid really well to be a really nice guy." And 2 months later, I was in Calabasas, California, in their corporate sales training to be a mortgage consultant. And then I did that for 4 years.
Hey, do you mind if I want to rewind the tape just a little bit because it's interesting. So you come from this big Italian family and you mentioned Manhattan. Was this in New York or in Jersey where you grew up, where the restaurant was?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and those were the restaurants I worked in.
Great. Wonderful.
In the area. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay. So now you end up just by happenstance, again, wasn't the intention. It was just kind of like life kind of served up an opportunity. You walked through the door. You took because you could have not taken the guy up on the offer to go shadow him, right? And that would have been that. And you could be I'm not talking to you right now. You're in a totally different place. But you go to Calabasas and you come back from that experience in Calabasas. And did you experience immediate success? Did you love what you were doing?
I thought it was cool to learn something I didn't know. I don't know many 22-year-olds that understand how mortgages work. Maybe today because of the power of the internet and AI. But learning that, I was just invigorated to get right to work. I loved winning, even from the restaurant world. I loved selling all the specials. I love having the most sales. Give me all the tables. I'll handle them all. So I jumped right in. And that year, so I started in March of that year. I was the rookie of the year for the whole company.
Wow.
I had most sales, highest volume. Granted, I was cold calling and receiving my leads from the New York area, so the highest home values, but I busted my butt. I really did enjoy it. Did I have immediate success? It probably took me about 6 weeks to get the ball rolling until I got my first fulfilled mortgage, but from there, losing was not an option, and I like seeing my name on the scoreboard. So
how long did you do that, Angelo, before you moved to your next mile marker, if you will, on the highway that brought you here?
Just under 5 years. And it came to a
Wow.
screeching
So, okay.
halt.
So, wow. So you were really in it to win. I mean, you were sticking in it. This was what you were going to do. What happened at the 5-year mark that caused caused you to have to move in a different direction?
It was actually the most catastrophic credit meltdown in my lifetime, which was the fall of Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and the credit markets.
2007, 2008.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So literally the world stopped as it pertained to banking, lending, mortgages, all of that stopped. Wow. So as you wake up there, you're having the time of your life. You're probably mid to late 20s. You're just killing it. And all of a sudden it stops. What do you do?
That's a tough one. God rest my dad's soul. He said to me, he goes, so this is the end of one thing and the beginning of another. Put your head down and let's get back to work. And I refused to, at that time, accept unemployment as an option for income. So I went right to work for our local newspaper. I had a marketing degree. That was my experience for school. For me, it was more about a bridge, right? So I went to work for a company owned by News Corporation. They were the local newspapers for the New York Post and Fox and the radio shows that they had. And I did that for a little while. And
selling
then,
advertising?
Advertising. So it was selling ads. And I was selling ads to the automotive industry. When they handed me the newspaper, the first place I went to was the back, which was the sports section. And in that section is where all the car dealers advertised. I said, hey, I could go talk to these guys. And I want to go talk to these guys because they want to be here. And I spent a lot of time talking to those guys.
What'd you like about them? What'd you learn about them?
I liked how similar that business was to the mortgage business. It was, high intensity, sales numbers driven, quotas were a thing. And I just liked the feeling of, you could walk into a diner and everyone's just hanging out waiting for the customers, and you seat yourself at the bar and someone eventually is going to come to you. But you walk into a car dealership, 5 people are going to try to grab you as soon as you walk in the door. And I like that feeling.
Yeah.
So I felt like we related. I could relate to them. And I knew what they wanted. They wanted to spend money to make money. And I felt like I could do that for them. I was all about giving someone a return on an investment because you're going to invest in me. I'm telling you what I think this can do. And then you're going to hand me over some money and I'm going to have to bring you back more of it.
Yep. Now, that ends up being a bridge after the mortgage business. How long did that bridge actually last?
Not very long. 6 months into that, a company may have heard of called AT&T.
Yes.
At the
little
top.
Startup.
Yeah, little startup. Top 3 richest companies in the world at the time. Started a new digital division called YP.com. So it was essentially the Yellow Pages online. And they were still in startup mode. They had maybe 10 offices, a little wild, wild west management team, great, smart people running it. And they headhunted me and said, hey, we're opening up a new division in New York City. We'd love for you to come kind of try out. I said, you mean an interview? And they were like, yeah, same thing. So I walked in, very formal but informal conversation, and they asked me to start working on the spot. So I can't do that. But I eventually did. A couple weeks later, I made the jump. And I said, hey, you know what? I think I'm ready for this. Digital is really more my thing anyway. And I did that for 5 years and promoted a couple times up the chain. And I ran the largest division in the company at the youngest age. So I was 28 years old, handed over the New Jersey and New York market. And I ran it with 100 media consultants, and a really fun time doing that. And
were you in automotive as one of your verticals at that time? Or no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One, of course, when I was in sales in the beginning, that was the first thing I went in after all my old customers and offering them the digital piece that I wish I could have sold them the year before. And now I could. And that's where the world was going. At that time, 2011, 2012, online wasn't new, but not everybody had figured it out yet.
Yeah, I mean, by 2011, 2012, online was a good 10 years old. But Interestingly, around that period of time, there were dealers that were still spending a percentage of their ad spend on terrestrial radio and on newspapers, right? Unheard of today for the vast majority of stores. So, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because originally you're in the mortgage business, very traditional, one-on-one. Then you go to sell newspaper ads, very old school, traditional, one-on-one sales typically. But now you're into a completely different industry, a different approach. And really the first time that you had the opportunity or the potential of creating early adopters, of somehow getting somebody to believe in you, to take that leap of faith, to move some of their ad budget from what they were used to, what they've done forever, newspaper, for example, into the digital side. What was that like? And what did you learn from the dealers that jumped in early versus the ones that said, nah, I'm going to stick with the newspaper?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot during the newspaper days because I learned about budgets, right? There were these movable budgets, but they were kind of firm. But if there was something interesting, the budget could change. And I had to try to fit the newspaper into that in the beginning. And then when it went to digital, digital was cool because we were selling all the platforms. AT&T at the time had great relationships with Google and Yahoo, and they owned their own Yellow Page network. And they just launched the iPhone. So it was a crazy time. It was really fun. But what I learned was the billboards were there so you can see yourself, right? There's really no business. No one's driving past a billboard and writing down a phone number at the time, but it's really more so you're visible. The call to actions were really in the newspaper. Here's the price of a car. Here's the down payment, and here's come in and see it. Right? Online's a different experience, right? You're not holding the online at the time. PC search was much higher than mobile search. Now, obviously, that's reversed tremendously. But we got to try to figure out the way buyers were looking for cars online. And at the time, there were no car gurus and CarMaxes. It wasn't the Kelley Blue Book everywhere. Kelley Blue Book still had a book at the time.
Yeah.
And this time around, I had to convince people and say, well, here's how many eyeballs are looking for the brand you're selling in the general area that you sell them. And guess what? You're not there. So guess what? They're not going to find you. And if they don't find you, you may not get that call or that visit. So do you believe that if you're in a place where hundreds or thousands of people are looking for what you sell, that there's a chance you can capture some of that business? And that was my sales pitch.
Well, there's very astute of you.
It wasn't, look how shiny my company is. It wasn't a who's my daddy and what does he do? It's just common sense. Do you believe that if hundreds of people are looking for what you do, where you do it, and you're there, do you think you have a chance to capture the business and put it on them?
It's very interesting to me to listen to this. This is why I love learning about people. Is because that kid at 14, 15, 16, 18, whatever it was, that walked up to a table and said, what do you want to eat? Don't worry about the menu. What do you want to eat? What did you imagine? What are in other words, you're focusing on the visualization, and you're right. And nobody really does this in restaurants. But when any of us walk to a restaurant, something inspired us to go to that particular place, right? Typically the cuisine or experience. And then when you get there, you always have something in mind that, I'm going to get this. And that's what your approach was. Well, here you are again, 10 years later, 12 years later, and that same approach served you very well, where you didn't focus on the technical stuff or the fact of the AT&T has this. You really just connected the dots for them to say, hey, if you want to sell cars to these people and they're all over here, do you see where that would make sense? It's really cool how you put that together so quickly, and you carried that through to everything you do. When you left AT&T after 5 years, where did it lead you?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is the story restarts here at Priority.
And so this is Priority Payment Systems Local, and it brought you here in what year? What year was it?
That was 2013.
So it's been 12 years already. So
Yes.
so you are another 5, 8, 10 year overnight success story.
This was a different experience because now this is ownership, right? It's building something that has nothing, no foundation at the time. So this was
what gave you, what was the inspiration or the impetus, number one? And number two, what gave you the guts to do that?
well, I would say guts was number one because at first I couldn't think about leaving my role at AT&T. My now partner Sal, our CEO, was in this business doing really really well. Uh, at the time, he was an expert, built a great foundation, a great system, a great book of business with really really tight knit clients. And I was watching him work, and it's funny because I only got to watch him work because one of our biggest clients was in the same town he was, so I would come visit, right, and then I would go visit Sal, who's a dear friend of mine, and I think we both realized that I was missing something and he was missing something. And then what we realized, it was each other, right? Him and his business for growth, and me just the challenge. I didn't have a challenge anymore, I think. Or maybe in retrospect, that's what I think it was. So we talked and talked for months, joking around most of the time. And I said, well, I need to understand your business a little bit, just out of, for my own sake, my own sanity. And I found it really interesting. And then we both decided one day to do it together and start a new brand and a new company from the ground up. And both of us had this vision. Mine was really more from my experience. My focus had to be on culture. Reputation was very important. Operational excellence was the key, not just sales, right? The key was to build a great foundation with those things at the forefront and then run at the speed of trust until we won.
Say that again.
And that's what,
for everybody. Run at the
speed of trust.
Yeah. Tell everybody what that means to you.
It means a lot to me. The word trust is always underlined when I say that. It could be trust a person. It could be trust historical facts. But in the context of what I'm talking about, it was trust the process. So the first thing we were going to do was create a process and then fill in the seats. Instead of what a lot of startups do is they hire people and then try to figure out things for them to do. So in the very beginning, we were Sal and I and a dear friend who was an employee at the time, and we built the process. And that was what we had to do. Then as the process got bigger, we needed people to fill in parts of the process, because in the beginning, we swept the floors, we cleaned out the sink, we bought the paper towels, we filled up the printer with ink, and then we made the sales calls and the proposals and the sales pitches and all that stuff. Now we got busier, so we needed more people to help us do that, and better people, better than us. And that's what we have now. We have people better than us working with us.
I love that you said that. I had a mentor. I've been so fortunate to have some great mentors along the way, and one of them taught me probably 3 decades or so ago to always hire somebody smarter than you. Don't be one of those people that wants to hire somebody who's not as smart, not as experienced, because they fear that person's going to take their job. He said, let me explain something to you. He said, if you hire somebody smarter than you, number one, they're going to do great things and make you look like a genius that you hired them. But number two, they give you the ability to grow that person into your current position so that then you can elevate into something else. And there was such a great learning moment for me. I love that you say that. So you endeavor every human that you hire, you want them to be better, smarter, faster than you, and then Sal.
That's right. Of course.
What has allowed you, Angelo? You spoke about culture a moment ago, but what do you think has allowed you to consistently attract? So you hear about so many companies struggle to find people, especially those say you can't find millennials. They don't want to work. Gen Z doesn't want to work. It's hard to work with them, this and that. But what has allowed you to consistently find really phenomenal human beings, people that are nice people, educated, smart, kind, respectful, but also work their butts off.
Yeah, it's a combination of a few things. We've done a lot of culture building ourselves. We come from a family-centric life, and we treat our personal life the same way we treat our business life. You got to just respect people, respect their time, respect their balance. And we like to hire from referrals. So employees here, I would say 9 out of 10 of our employees here were referred by another employee during our recruitment process. We do what every company does. You put your job listings online, or you put them in colleges. You start people off as interns. We've done all that. But all of our employees here, I would say besides maybe 2 of them, were a referral from another employee. They came in the door, and we always say to someone who refers a recruit, we say, hey, just so you know, whether or not they get hired or not, it has no bearing on you. But why are you asking them to come interview here? It's because it's so great to work here. So we take that on, as part of our experience in hiring. We tell them that, like, hey, you were recommended here by someone who already works. So what did they tell you? And then they go down this list of things that they love. And it's not that's like, there's free coffee in the break room, or you give great PTO schedules and things like. We don't do that. That's not what it's about. It's about being part of something. So we let people stand in front of their work and take credit for it. It wasn't the company that did it. It was you. And, when I say we pay well, we probably do. I know what the industry pays. We pay probably up there in the higher second half or top quarter of it. And at the end of the day, our people get to go home. They're not traveling an hour and a half. We're not hiring people to travel 100 miles to come here, or 2 hours on a bus to Manhattan. It's a little bit different here. That culture makes you feel like I want to go to work today because I'm going to accomplish great things. I'm going to be working with great, happy people, and I'm going to get patted on the back if I do something good. And if I have a problem, they won't allow me to suffer in silence. Come in, let's talk about it. No one's in trouble. Let's fix it. Customer first, right? Let's fix their problem. But if you're hiding it, we're going to have a problem. So we teach the opposite of hiding problems. Never suffer in silence.
I love that as well. Somebody had taught me, I always did this with my general managers when I was an executive for AutoNation. I had about 45 GMs. And I always said, hey, if you don't put your hand up, you're basically saying, I have everything I need. I know everything I need in order to be able to hit the objective. If you don't, you're on your own, right? You got to stand on the carpet yourself. But if you raise your hand, it becomes our challenge, right? And we'll attack that together. I love the fact that you're teaching your people that mindset. And part of the reason I love that, there's a lot of reasons why, but part of it is it creates another aspect of your culture where it really eliminates the potential of a blame game kind of a situation, or people focusing on the rearview mirror instead of who cares what caused it to happen? Let's just fix the issue and make sure it doesn't happen again. I love that. So I want to use that as a transition point, and this has been such a great conversation, and thank you for being so open about how you got here, Angelo. But I do want to get into the business side of the business, Priority Payment Systems Local, for a couple reasons. I love innovation. And sometimes innovation is referred to, or oftentimes it's associated with technology. I oftentimes think of innovation with leadership, right? Innovative leadership, innovative thought process, innovative systems, or innovative approaches to things. I know a number of dealers that use your solution, including Napleton comes to mind, for example. And this is an organization. They're big, they're sophisticated, they have incredibly bright people, some of the best I've met in the industry. And they vet the snot out of things, and they selected you guys to handle their credit card processing, right? Am I accurate there? And when I talk to them, the word that you hear is that it's very innovative, it's transformational, it's very different. And the reason I want to start there is, how do you go into a business that it seems at baseline is very commoditized, right? I mean, there's a lot of companies that do credit card processing, and from somebody from the outside looking in, like a dealer, you might say, okay, you have maybe a different terminal, but other than that, you're going to run the credit card, you're going to have a processing, you're going to pay some kind of fee. How are you able to innovate what seemingly was such a commoditized business? And that's one question. Actually, let's start there. How are you able to innovate, you and Sal?
Well, David, that's a great question. So our automotive division and our product line is called AutoLink, right? And so the name wasn't by accident. That was intentional. What sets it apart is that it's dealer centric, and it's high tech, and it's committed to our net zero model, which is the fee eliminating pricing platform that's very popular today. So we coined net zero back in 2019. We trademarked the name, we patent the product and the process. So a lot of our competitors who provide a similar solution, it's very generic. But we built AutoLink specifically for dealerships from the ground up. So our focus was entirely on efficiency in one, cost control, obviously, as a default mechanism. Compliance is super important, especially in automotive. So it enables dealers to eliminate or significantly reduce their payment cost, but also getting something out of it. It's not just a pricing program like every payment processor out there. The difference was very simple, though. We're specialists, not generalists, and our solutions align with the way that they run the store. So from cashiers to B&I, F&I, the service writers, and my treasury team here is probably nodding their heads if they'll listen to this. We focused it on the controllers. The controllers at the dealership were the folks that we wanted to solve the most problems for. Every day they're spending time grabbing credit card receipts, entering them into journals, probably entering it also into the DMS. And if they have multiple stores with multiple terminals, there's multiple batch reports. So we digitalized the whole thing. And today, our competitors do as well. But what really sets us apart is setting it up correctly. So implementation was so important for us. When we say white glove, we mean it. It's not we'll show up. It's we're going to land it. We're going to be at your dealership. Obviously, if you commit to work with us, we're going to be at your dealership. And the same folks that are training you, plugging in your tech solutions, setting up users, customizing the way reports are sent, those are the same folks that when you have a question or need a solution, those are the same people you're going to talk to on the phone. They're in our headquarters. We fly them out on this round robin on purpose. It's intentional. The same people on our support team are the same people that do the installations. And the technology, AutoLink, we've integrated into DMSs. We have our CDK certified app with our premium coming out next. We finished the Dominion DMS integration that's fully native. And Dealer Track is done today. We're trying to connect with all the people who serve up data and provide CRMs to the dealers, and just connecting it with a native payment platform. It's a lot of work. It's very expensive, but it's needed. There's a big need for that in the business, and we're keeping our ears to the ground every day to get there.
And the vision, obviously, I would think, the point of the investment, the passion for being able to achieve that vision is being able to deliver something to me as a dealer that allows me to have a fully transparent, compliant, easy, smooth process for the client, as well as for my associates. But then going back to the controller, also doing it because of the integration in a way that doesn't put more work on her or his desk, because somehow you're integrated, it's going to reconcile, it's going to make that process easier.
Yeah, I mean, we're ahead of that curve, right? What we wanted to do was solve the reconciliation process, right? handling disputes, right? Disputes are a big part of a car dealer's day to day, especially those controllers are the folks that are handling those incoming disputes from the car brands. I think we're all guilty of it. You go in and maybe put a deposit on something like a car, and you decide not to buy it, and now you're impatient to get your deposit back. So you call your credit card company and say, "Hey, I never got my money back," and you didn't give the car dealer enough time, or maybe their technology was too slow to process that refund. We've created a very instantaneous process for that. Once you let go of a deposit, we're processing it back and notifying the cardholders back. But on top of that, the part that was really the key is the transparency to that. You have these open deposits. They're visible to you. Now, when you release someone from that car, they're not buying it anymore. They're buying something else. Or in some cases, you finish a deal, and in some cases, they'll want to refund the deposit because the deposit was included in the deal. That process needs to be seamless, because what is the car business about? It's about the customer experience. I mean, dealers are rated on CSI. That customer service index is super important. Payments is part of it. It's actually a major part of it. In my eyes, it's the end of the deal, right? So it's the last thing you remember when you walk out the door. So for us, we want to make that as painless as possible and, in fact, help you.
Very cool. And, you mentioned that you've got competitors, obviously, that have kind of followed your footsteps in terms of wanting to digitize the process, for example. But, you work with hundreds and hundreds, well over 1,000, 1,500 dealers, right? I'm guessing in the country. If I'm hearing you correctly, I want you to please share what exactly makes Priority Payment Systems local. What makes your program stand out? You've mentioned reconciliation, integration, process, compliance, and one of the big things you mentioned was the onboarding. Was the commitment to send people from your office, the people you're talking to, in the store, so the person that you're going to maybe need help with, support from at some point, actually was there. They built the house. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I would say that that's the best part of our process.
Is the people.
People. Absolutely. Technology is ever growing. AutoLink today is not what AutoLink looked like 6 months ago. Forget about last year. It's going to continuously evolve, and that's our commitment to the technology. We're going to continue to invest. We're going to continue to make that part better. But really, where we win is on the upfront, right? The process of understanding your pricing, the process of actually taking payments on this new technology, super important. It's not just like handing someone an iPhone and saying, "Figure it out." The apps are there, and this is how you turn it on. Good luck. We're there walking every step of the way. Actually, some dealers are like, "Hey, you can speed it up," right? Because they get it. But then we have some dealers who maybe not. They want us to go slow. They want us to teach them every inch of it. So we take nothing for granted. We don't assume that people understand how virtual terminals work, how physical terminals work, or how to reconcile or pull reports. So we teach them every step of the way. And the good news, David, is we give them a lot of a la carte options, from very simple to very intricate. We do connect to accounting softwares. Some dealers and controllers and CFOs don't want that. Some require that. So we make sure that we're ready for the 1-point dealer or the 75 location group. That's why our tech is good. That's why our product is good. That's what separates us a lot from our competitors. But I think the part that really separates us is that we understand the business. We speak their language. We're listening to them. We have a few dealers who are on our very soft advisory board. It's our complaint department, but we use it for enhancements to the product. When you give us a complaint, we don't just fix it and Band-Aid that. We take that back and say, is this a common complaint? Is this a glitch in the system, or is it just a one-off? And then we evaluate that. And if it needs to be fixed, we fix it. It's an ever-evolving system and process.
One of the biggest things, I work with dealers around the country, and I've noticed in some stores, their credit card line on their financial statement, that expense has gone up. And I think it's really the first time for some dealers that they've said enough is enough. I need to do something here because I'm getting killed on fees. And that's where your net zero program comes in. I oftentimes find that when you talk to dealers, their biggest concern is always brain damage. They don't want to put their teams through any kind of hardship in their mind. The pain points. There's always these perceived pain points. And it's almost like, yeah, I know my current situation's not the best, but it's kind of the devil you know. And I don't want to go through these pain points to be able to go from where we are to a much better solution. How do you manage? You've mentioned your people and your onboarding a little bit, but when you talk to a dealership, I talked to a group that used you, and it's like they kept waiting for the pain point, for the other foot to drop. It didn't happen. Where's that magic come from? Do you also attribute that to just paying attention to the details and your people and the caring that they have, a little bit like going back to the restaurant when you have a server that really loves what they do and cares about the experience versus somebody who just takes the order?
Yeah. Servers like that in restaurants usually aren't very good friends with the chefs, right? Because a lot of attention to detail. You know, they remember that a customer said they don't like a certain ingredient or a certain herb or some type of cooking pattern. So we do the same thing, right? Our team, from the beginning to the end, is covering as many details as humanly possible, and even asking questions that are like simple no's. But we get those out of the way because so your dealer that said they were waiting for the pain is because that's what they were used to, right? Every time they switched, it was not frictionless, right? So we know that. And like I said earlier, that process, it might be mind-numbing for some people. And some of our competitors look at us like we're crazy because we have so many hands in the process. But that's like the assembly line, right? Everyone is doing damage control on a product. It's the QA process that really, when we show up, we're ready to land the plane. That installation, we've already done a week or more of preparation before we got there. And when we got there, we knew who we were looking for. We knew who needed special attention. We knew who needed customization, and we handled it. But here's the really important part. Our installers don't just leave. They leave a business card with their cell phone on it, a magnet. They stick them on everything that's metal in the dealership. If you have a problem, you call me because I did this install. I want to be responsible for it until we're off to the races. And we get a lot of those calls like, hey, I forgot this. I forgot that. Can you reset my password? Whatever it is, we're handling it right there and then. So that speed, right? What the biggest complaint that people get in any business, and even me as a consumer, is waiting for an answer. You know, sitting there, you have an immediate need. I bought this product, I gave you my money, and now it doesn't work. I'm not mad at you it doesn't work. I'm mad that you didn't get back to me quick enough. So taking that experience and applying that to the way we do business was super important to the way we built this process.
So stay in that vein for a minute. In terms of the types of clients you work with very large groups. Do you work with any small dealerships, maybe 1, 2, 3 rooftops?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, many of them.
One thing that you hear these days with a lot of technology and solutions, Angelo, is, yeah, that can work in this city. Yeah, that can work for a big dealer group. Yeah, that can work for a consolidator. But I'm just a mom and pop store. I'm just a single point, or maybe I have 2 or 3 stores in a location. Can a dealership with that scenario win by utilizing your services, your people, your product, your technology? Can they win just like the big ones?
Yeah, you know, that's a really great question and very common, right? That happens with all of our small groups. And here's the bottom line. We're not here to make anyone take on net zero. We're here to help them. So if they have it in their minds that this is a platform that they need to recoup those fees, or they want to be competitive, or they want to be like the bigger groups, we'll help them figure that out. And, you know, to that point, maybe it's not for everybody. You know, I wouldn't say that 100% of our dealers or even general merchants are all on net zero because of one reason or the other. But what we can do is share with them our experiences with how it affects CSI, how their current market of other businesses, put into perspective. When you go to a restaurant or your dry cleaner or your local coffee shop or even your gas station, are they charging you a little bit more for the use of plastic versus cash? And what do you think the answer is today? Yes. So do you believe that your customers or the folks that do business with you are not going to do business with you because you do the same thing that their coffee shop does? I don't think so. And if they won't come back, maybe they weren't really your customer and they only came for the deal. And that's fine too. So maybe this program isn't for you. And then here's the bottom line. Everyone that goes on our program, 100% of them have stayed on the program. We have zero attrition on net zero.
That's impressive.
In automotive.
That's impressive. I got to ask something else too, because you triggered something in my brain. And again, because I deal with so many different dealers and groups, different scenarios, geographies, franchises. Some of them, they definitely want to be able to recover. They're more of that net zero type of a client. But they have clients that they still want to offer them the opportunity that if they want to use a debit card, for example, they could avert those fees. If I'm a dealership, do I have the opportunity to create kind of a bespoke program for can I pick and choose my places? Can I still be able to recover fees from credit cards and yet be able to offer that type of solution for clients that essentially want to pay cash, want to use a debit card?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 different ways that net zero works. One of them, would you just explain the surcharge? So compliant surcharge, you actually can't charge more for a debit card. So that product is available to all dealers. In certain states, they don't allow surcharge at all. So there's 2 remaining. So in 48 states, you can run that exact program. So debit customers, unaffected. Cash customers, unaffected. Use a true credit card. Our system knows through the bank's BIN, the BIN, the bank identification number will tell us if that's a debit card or a credit card. And if it's a true credit card, it's a compliance surcharge is added to the receipt and to the transaction. But your debit customers go unaffected.
Okay. Just a couple other things come to mind. One is, and one of my favorite expressions, Angelo, is 2 words: what's next? And so when you think about what's next in the world of payment processing, didn't feel like it was that long ago that people would show up in a service department and they would pull out their checkbook and write a personal check. And then the dealership had to wait and verify it with the bank sometimes, right? It's total pain. And then we all thought we were kind of cool when we could switch over to credit cards. And then, COVID, oftentimes you hear it said that it didn't change that much, but it accelerated everything. And one of the things that seemed to accelerate is touchless payments. Of course, today, there are dealerships that offer mobile payments. You've got mobile payments, text payments, things of that nature. What's next? Are we heading in a world in your mind to where the actual physical plastic becomes a thing of the past? Because you've said it from the beginning of this interview. Experience, experience, experience. Restaurant, I want a great experience, right? When you were working in mortgages, when you're working in the selling advertising, it was always the experience and the vision that you focused on. As you sit here now with all this experience in the last 12 or 13 years, where do you think we're heading? What's next in your world? Payment technology.
David, you nailed it. I think plastic at some point in the next 5 years is going to be the least used way to make a payment. Mobile wallets are now available in our system. The frictionless digital transaction is so important. So using things like QR codes on the repair orders. So you print down, in our system, you print down the repair order. It's going to have a QR code on it. They don't have to call you. They don't have to come to your store to pay it. It's on there. They could scan it and pay it on their own phone any way they wanted to, whether it's through an Apple or Google Wallet with their own credit card, process a check or ACH payment right there. So that's here now. What's coming for the dealers, I think they need access. They need access to more of the things that they spend too much time having these big meetings on, like floor planning. You know, floor planning is this huge process, major credit facilities, a lot of promises and audits. Why not have the experts at card services offer a commercial card program to couple your floor planning? And that's really where we're going. We want to make access to short-term capital for dealers very, very simple and very inexpensive. So that's what we're planning next. And it's out. I mean, we're doing it now. Once we perfect the process and make it super easy for the dealers to access this capital, you're going to start seeing it a lot more.
So what you're saying is you're allowing, if I'm hearing you right, I could see that going a couple different ways. I could see that going in a direction to where somebody's using whatever floor plan facility they're using today, but they could unify. Like one of the things I hear all the time with technology, I'm so tired of writing so many checks to 15 different vendors using 15 support systems, 15 training problems. And basically you're saying something a little similar. Listen, this is an area of my business that is cash related, financial related, business office related. You could potentially unify both the credit card processing side of the equation with the credit facility for floor plan and unify that so I'm dealing with one unified financial source and being able to, frankly, leverage the fact that I'm using this side to get a better deal on this side and vice versa, and being able to deal with one set of people that I know and I trust. Is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a 25 location group this week. 90% of their vendor payments were paid by check. They physically write checks. And it's not uncommon. If they do it, I would imagine that all of them do it, right? What we have, and this is what we would call the future of vendor payments, make it buyer-enabled payments. And if you have the credit, and we have the platform to convert credit to whatever the desired method of payment your vendor wants, let's do that. And let's give you a lot of credit to do that. Pay your vendor by ACH, but use your credit card to do it. I think that's something very special and doesn't exist.
It's a very interesting pivot. I look forward to hearing a lot more about that. And I want to just end up in a little bit of a speed round. Question number one, I just want you to think, you got to hear feedback, post. You put a dealer on, they're waiting for the pain point, it doesn't happen, or you put a dealer on and all of a sudden they go from having an expense in the credit card line to a credit. I mean, is there a dealer or dealer group that you could think of in your head? You don't have to name the exact group or dealer if you don't wish, but just an example of you hear back from a client that you go, man, we delivered. We did what we set out to do. We made their life better, simpler. Is there feedback from a customer that you've gotten or you get over and over that just goes, man, we're on the right path?
Yeah, a lot of that has circled around dealers that had the fear of how their customers were going to react once they jumped into a net zero like program. And every single time I say that if I get a chance to speak with the dealer principal or whoever's making the decision, I say, I'm going to tell you this right now, you're not a unicorn. Every single dealer had the same exact fear. How are my customers going to react? But what they found was reality versus the anxiety were two different things. Your customers are not going to react negatively. Maybe one or two, but they react negatively anywhere they go. They're unpleasable customers. And we're going to try our best to please them too. Give them the option to not have to pay a fee in a certain way, and you'll solve that problem. And then we get the call back or we ask and we say, hey, so how are the customers reacting? Like, what do you mean? Remember like a week ago, or a month ago, you thought they were all going to be complaining and showing up with pitchforks at the front of your store? Did they do that? No, actually, we haven't gotten a complaint yet. And by the way, we did save all that money you said we were gonna. So that's that's the biggest thing that we get the most. Is it the most important? No, because that's a layup. The part that we love the best is what you mentioned before. I love hearing that, where they were expecting some pain and they just kept waiting and waiting and it never came. And that to me, it tells me again, it reinforces that our team is doing what they set out to do.
You know what it says? It says your people care. It's not, it doesn't just say to me that, hey, you got a good solution, your processes are solid, but you could have all that. And if you happen to have associates that don't care, it doesn't translate. It doesn't come through. It's kind of like, go back to the restaurant. I see so many times, I'm a partner in a big restaurant group of really beautiful, nice restaurants. You go to restaurants sometimes where they put all the ingredients on the plate, right? It looks beautiful. It doesn't translate. It doesn't taste great. The fusion of flavors doesn't work. And so you have to have those people that care. And to me, more than anything else, it just says to me, you must have some associates that really care about the outcome. I want to wrap up with just a couple quick things. Number one, what was the first car you ever owned?
Your first car?
First car you ever owned?
A Nissan Maxima.
Oh, jeez, dude. You were doing all right.
Nice.
That was fancy.
Yeah, it was a nice car, too.
Wow. All right. Are you a car guy today?
I have a couple cars.
All right. You love cars.
Yeah, I have a couple of them. I have, my dailies are, I have a Range Rover. My wife actually drives that new Infiniti QX.
Nice.
Beautiful.
The 80.
High-tech.
Yeah. Very high-tech.
And my little weekend car is a nice Bentley GTC. I love that car.
It's a great car. Beautiful. Last question. Speaking of family, we started out talking about you and your family and how all this came about. You have kids now, yes? How many?
I do. I have 3 children. Yeah, 3 sons.
3 sons, wonderful wife, dear wife, great family.
Yes.
Your inspiration for doing what you do. Has it occurred to you yet that you are full circle from that kid in Brooklyn? Has that ever struck you? Does that?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Everything we were taught, my grandparents came over to this country in the early 1950s. We were brought up a certain way, and that way always came back to love and family. It always does that. And every day I get to do that. Every single day I get to go back to love and family. I have an unbelievable wife who loves me and our children immensely. My 3 sons, Angelo 12, Matteo 10, Nico 5. I feel like I look at them and I want to inject them with everything I've got. And that starts with love, right? Love and respect. Loyalty is super important to me. At the end of the day, I want them to be happy, right? And if those things, those ingredients I'm giving them spit out a dish that creates happiness, then I'm happy. And then this all made sense.
Man, there is no way I could finish on a better note than that. Literally no way. I want to thank you, Angelo, for being really so open with your background, with how you got here, with your upbringing, with your dear family, and with what drives you, what drives your associates to create not just a technology, but a process, and a level of service or experience that is truly innovative. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. It's been a long time coming, and it was worth the wait. For those of you that took the time to listen, thank you as well. I appreciate so much. I hope you learned as much as I did. I love the insights. I love hearing that there's a million different ways to get to where you want to go. But there's only one way. If you think about it, there's only one way to do it the right way, right? If at the end of the day, you do it in a way that is with respect, dignity, love, kindness, appreciation, and caring, like you heard today, there's got to be a pretty happy ending. So, which is what Angelo said he wants for his kids. Thank you. I wish you guys all the best. Wherever you are listening, I hope you and your families, your dear ones, are well and happy. And I thank you for tuning in. Please take the time to share this episode out. If you know somebody who would love to learn about what you heard today about Angelo and about his story and about what they're building over at Priority Payment Systems Local. If you want to know more about Angelo and the company, you could go to davidspisak.com. There are show notes there as well as ways to connect with him. And I just look forward to listening more, Angelo, about what happens in the future. And for those that took the time to tune in, also feel free to leave a review. I really do read and love them all. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the David Spisak Show. Thanks so much.